Hi, this is Karen Fabian, founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about giving cues in yoga teaching, and I have Mr. Skeleton here to help us, and truth be told, he's got my little notes here, so I'm going to just refer to that to make sure I get to all the tips for you. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who told me a funny story. He was in a yoga class, and the teacher, as they were in downward dog, said, "Rest in downward dog." And I thought that was funny, and he thought it was pretty funny because as a newer student, he said he absolutely could not connect to the feeling of resting in downward facing dog, which he found to be a pretty strenuous pose, which it is. But it really speaks to the ability to be able to give good cues in yoga class and how those can really make the difference for your students. So I'm going to talk to you about just a couple of tips around giving helpful cues in teaching yoga. And the first one has to do with make your cues actionable, and that means use words that are generally understandable, use words that that anticipate the action you want the students to take. So things like rooting down or spreading your fingers or reaching high or squeezing in. These are actionable words that you can use, and because if you understand the anatomy behind the poses, you'll be able to help your students connect to right action when they're in each posture. The second thing is use terms that are generally understandable, right? So we don't want to, this is always a challenge for me because I do teach anatomy, not to get too much into the weeds of detail. So stay at a level using words and phrases that are generally understandable by everyone. Even something like referring to the sitting bones, which are technically called your ischial tuberosities, which you'd probably never say, but even saying sitting bones, maybe some people don't really know what that is. So just remembering you want to keep just generally understandable terms in your teaching. Using cues that are brief phrases and really easily digestible. And this has to do with just recognizing that when people are coming to yoga, they're stressed, oftentimes classes are at the end of a work day, and their brain can only handle so much. So if you have kind of a conversational style in cueing, that can be okay. But if you're going to be cueing to action, trying to use brief phrases that really get to the heart of the matter as soon as possible with as little phrasing as possible. The other nice thing, or the other helpful thing potentially for you as a teacher, is to stick to cues around the physical body. I know for myself, when I began teaching, I was a bit swept up into this idea of kind of coaching my students both from a mind and body standpoint. So I might speak to their heads a lot in terms of kind of their mindset. And that's a little bit out there, a little bit esoteric. It can be effective, and I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm just saying for me, what I've found can be helpful is really sticking with cues that have to do with the physical body versus things like feeling and emotion, that kind of thing. And then the last thing is anticipating problems. And this has to do with, as you get more experienced as a teacher, you probably have an idea of the kinds of things that could potentially be happening in your students' bodies. So as they're in downward dog, that feeling potentially that they're sinking into their shoulders, and giving them cues like pushing the floor away, which can help them come out of that uncomfortable sensation. So if you enjoy this topic, I encourage you to click the link in the YouTube description below, and that will take you to a blog post that details this a little bit more, and in writing, of course. And in that blog post, there's also an invitation to download a free download on yoga anatomy. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please contact me. Visit my website, barebonesyoga.com. Namaste.